Good morning, afternoon, evening, or good night. I feel like I'm kind of stealing Truman's thing, from the Truman Show. If I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, good night. I don't know what it is, but it's something like that. Anyway, hello, good day. I'm Zion, student at LAMDA, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts, and I am on my 9th day. Wow. I just finished my 9th day yesterday. I'm starting to feel it. My hamstrings have been super tight today. Maybe partially because I'm walking about 10 miles a day. It's like about 4 miles there, 4 miles back, and then within moving around the school, I walk about a mile or two. But, yeah, woke up at 5:30 this morning. Had my alarm set for 5, so I woke up first at 5. Then I was like, oh, 5:30 might be nice. I have to get to the school by 9 for ensemble singing. But that also means that I need to leave here around before 8. So my goal is 7:30. We'll see. I got about an hour. Okay. Yesterday was a long day, but a lot of it was just kind of busy work. So ideally this video won't take too long. We started at 9 a.m. in the morning with a company meeting. So a company meeting is something we'll do once a month. Bi-weekly from 9:30 typically to 9:50. Occasionally longer like yesterday. But we're responsible for our warm-ups on that day because we need to warm up and get ready for the day. And our main purpose this time was electing our class reps. So since we're in our 3 groups with A, B, C, right? Then we split up in our groups. We were all together for a while, and I was like, I haven't seen you guys for so long. It's like lost family. And so we broke up in our groups and we voted for our class rep. And I put my name out there. I was like, hey, I care about people. I would advocate for you guys. I've had some leadership. Threw in that I was a certified life and health coach, if you didn't know. And yeah, and so we voted. 3 of us ran, and then Chandler and I tied. And so we just did a blind vote. And then so we voted again, and then Chandler won, and I'm stoked for him. He was an RA, which I don't remember what that stands for, but in college, it's in the United States, it's a representative assistant. I don't know, like on a whole dorm floor, he's like in charge of college students and make sure that they're safe. He said he took some people to the hospital and stuff, so he's gonna do great. Yeah, we kind of went over the responsibilities. Basically, the point is you want to help people be prepared and be aware of what's going on and what all this and this and that and this. And it's all super chill. Some things do overstep that you don't want to overstep. You should, if you have like a problem with the tutor, don't go to your class rep, go to your tutor themselves. The rep shouldn't advise people on the right way to like behave or the right way for hygiene. That's, we're all adults and that's a personal thing. Do things that are affecting the group as a whole, like write estate things. Sometimes I don't know what I wrote. Concerns about chemistry, housing, warm-ups, the lot. And then they might help lead out some self-led warm-ups and just keep people in touch. Yeah. they emphasized the importance of getting to class 30 minutes early and timeliness and things, and then that was basically it. It went a little longer, but it was good. Yeah. And then we moved to our romantic scene study, our project, and we began with the classic LAMDA walking around and becoming present and breathing, and then some vocalized sighs, and then some whoop whoop with a little skip or a hop, and then connecting with others with that, with the whoops and the sighs, and then walking as a group, and then saying lines, and and then just kind of making something of it. And then so on Tuesday, which seems like forever ago, I was realizing walking home yesterday that I've only had 2 days with Gemma, but it feels like a week at the very least. But, yeah, so we were walking as a group, and then as we walked as a group, Gemma called someone that they would begin the scene, right? The little midsummer scene that we were working on, and when we were separated into the groups of the Hermias and the Lysanders, then then the people who played Hermia first switched and learned the Lysander part, and Lysander learned the Hermia parts. But then she just called on anyone and was just like, yeah, James, you start us out, or Lady, or whomever, right? And so and then you just did one word, and then the whole class started. So it was like fair, love, you, faint, with, wandering in the, and then you go through, and then she would switch. Sometimes at the end of the line, sometimes not. Usually, I think. But I was like, oh, I don't know, because I focused really hard on learning Lysander's part, and I made flashcards, and I was running them the whole morning on the way to school, which was stressful, because I'm not great at memorization. But, I didn't put in my headphones. Hopefully you can hear me. If this sounds a little different, it's because I didn't put in my headphones. I'm going to put in my headphones now. Hopefully this won't pause it or anything. Yeah. Does it sound better now? I don't know, and you're not going to know either. Hopefully it wasn't bad. Anyway, so then after that, we walked around and we started the scene in different parts with different people. So we were just walking individually, and then we would look at each other, and then we would start the scene. And it was kind of expected to know the parts, or you would just do it at whatever part. It's like, take the sense, sweet, in my innocence, which is like in the middle. Love takes the meaning in love's conference, blah, 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 right? I'm trying to let that get out of my brain so that I can learn my actual lines, which I'll get to in a second. So then we're able to use either character. I always use Lysander because that was the one I felt like I really actually knew, because I forgot Hermia. I feel like I need to let go of some of that and just go for things, even if I don't feel prepared. I can do what I can to prepare and then jump into it. What does it say? Oh, yeah. Yeah, while we were doing that, Hannah was chasing around Tilly, like pursuing her as Lysander, and then I joined in, and it was fun. I didn't know the lines super well, but we kind of switched off a little bit, and it was fun. And then she would say switch or do something, break it up. Then we focused on the space itself, which was really cool. And she's like, okay, now Gemma was like, focus on the wood, focus on your location, right? And discover it, like discover the trees and the animals and the brooks and the wood. And so we all just kind of became one of our characters and looked around, and I was kind of lost in the woods. I was doing Lysander, of course. And so so then I saw that Johannes had fallen down. I was like, oh, perfect. I was like, he's definitely playing Hermia. I'll go start the scene. And she asked us not to use words, but just to engage. And so I was like, I'm going to do this scene. And so I was like, oh, you look so sad. I didn't say anything, but I was like, you look so sad. Come lie down on the wood. Like, lie down and sleep, and it'd be so very nice. And then he got up, and I was like trying to like focus on the ground and be like, walk here. And then he started walking, like sleep here, and then he started like walking on like a log or something, like he was balancing and walking one foot in front of the other. And I was like, oh, we're not just doing the scene, we're kind of just living here. I was like, okay, cool, let's play. So then I did a little bit of that. I got an apple from Mia, tried to show her a little baby fawn. Just discovering, just enjoying it. And then she also, which was cool, gave us the back wall and said, if you need to observe, stand back here and you can kind of watch. Like, so if the playing is not coming naturally, or if you don't know how to start, shout out to Sandridge, then observe for a little bit and get inspired. And then she said, now add some lines, and I saw Chandler laying down, and I was like, I'm gonna roll in. I was like, I don't remember where I started. I might have started at the beginning and the middle, but I just kind of tried to cuddle up next to him, and it was funny. It was good. And then we went back to our sighs and our whoops to kind of reset. And then we got into small groups and discussed and reflected. And it was cool. Yeah. Sorry, I wrote some things like on the little side here. And so I was like, ooh, let's see what it is. And then we circled up in our seats and discussed as a full class what we had discussed already. And basically, I was saying how and thinking how it was cool to discover. I was with Lady and Fatima, and I just said that kind of there was this forced presence of discovery. Like, if you have to discover, it forces your presence, and I kind of like that. And then a lot of people talked about how they enjoyed and felt safe in the quiet. And then Gemma said something great. She said, there is nothing new under the sun but how you approach it. So, like sometimes we try to reinvent the wheel, and it's the approach that's different and the way we come at it. So how am I coming at the work? What am I bringing? The point of a master's program is to discover my process. How will I come? And then she offered a book by Cicely Berry, Text in Action, an author, also actor into text. She said that's one that she comes back to a lot, but she says she gets really skeptical when anyone says it's a definitive approach or a definitive this. She's like, she likes to take from all different sources, and there's so much validity in different ways. And then she handed out our scenes. And my scene, I'm in a 4-person scene. And I am playing Demetrius in a scene from A Midsummer Night's Dream. That's always a funny one, where to put like the possessive S. A Midsummer Night's Dream. Ours is long because there's 4 of us and because there's just long sections. And she said she'll cut it with us in rehearsals. But we're doing Act 3, Scene 2 when Lysander has already been bewitched by Puck to fall in love with Helena instead of Hermia, who was his love that he ran into the woods with, to be married. And Demetrius still loves Hermia, but then in the middle of the scene, he gets bewitched by Puck. And so then he falls in love with Hermia. And so it's some fun ridiculousness and insulting and interesting things. And we read through our script for the first time. We kind of looked, and then we started to look up unfamiliar words. My group is Mia is playing Hermia, Ligny is playing Helena, I'm playing Demetrius, and Chandler is playing Lysander. It's a good group. I'm really excited about it. Then we broke for lunch. I ate some lunch. We broke a little early because we didn't get our 15-minute break. Well, she hadn't given us our 15-minute break yet. So we just had a great time in the common room where a lot of people eat lunch, but we were there early, and I sat with Hannah and James and Fatima, and it was just great getting to know people, and it wasn't too loud or too obnoxious. And I had a chair because the day before I kneeled on a beanbag because there weren't a lot of chairs. There was space at tables, but no chairs. It's a weird little situation. Anyway, yeah, and it was good. And then when we came back, we were in a new space, and we addressed problematic language, right? Because there are offensive, ableist, racist, sexist comments in Shakespeare. Shakespeare may have been really progressive for his time, but that was 400 years ago, more. It was late 1500s, early 1600s. And so we had looked up a term that meant I can't remember. It was a tar. I don't remember. But it basically meant a yellow Asian person in a negative way. And I was like, wow, that's a slur, really, and how do we feel about that? And Gemma's so great. She's a black woman. I don't know if I mentioned that. But she just addressed that the only thing we can't do with this language, right? We can rewrite a word if it doesn't serve, or if we decide to. We can keep the word or the phrase. We can remove a whole line if we need to. But the one thing we can't do is we can't ignore it, because then there's unsettled feelings. There's unsettled. We're not honoring each other. We're not honoring the audience. It's not, if there's something that is going to distract and offend, we need to make sure that it's purposeful if we want to observe it or if we want to maintain it, but we can't just leave that there to be unspoken about, which is great. And it was just a really cool open dialogue. Gemma said how she loves the play Titus Andronicus, even though there's some very awful, murderous, sexual assaulty kind of things in that. And we talked about the little scene from Midsummer that we all did with Lysander and Hermia about fainting in the wood. And she said, is there any words or phrases in this that might be seen as offensive? And I read through it, and then I looked at it, and I was like, nah, I don't think so. I was like, I might be wrong, but I don't see anything. And someone pointed, caveat, sidebar, tangent, aside to the audience. I need to get permission from my classmates to talk about them and by name and things, so I need to ask. I'll probably put it in the chat. but because the main purpose of this is to help me remember and be able to digest what I'm writing and learning every day, so that I have this to come back to. But I don't want to share any information that people wouldn't want shared, So I'm gonna keep some names and some people not identified until I get permission. So, so as we were talking about these things, someone brought up the word fair, right? The very first word in the scene we learned was fair love. You faint with wandering in the wood. And this person said, yeah, that fair is associated with pale skin and beauty, and how white is good and black is bad. And I was like, oh shoot, I've so disassociated that word as just beautiful. But of course somebody might approach it that way. And then we talked about how there were these absolutes and these just ideals that were accepted, that this is beautiful and this is not. And we have grown as a society since then, and we have more room for nuance, and we're better than that, right? Somebody brought up the word maid. That maid has like connection to servants or virtuous, pure, like virgin, and these things. And so Gemma had mentioned, like, when she was in drama school, she kept getting cast as the slave or the servant, which is so sad and demeaning. And it's one of those things, since it wasn't talked about, it's like, oh, is that all you see me as? Do I not fit in the space? And our scene particularly has a lot of offensive language. It makes fun of little people and just, it's very ableist in that sense too. And we refer to Asia a lot. But we talked about that we don't have to honor offensive language or slurs. Especially, I mean, if a character is evil and that is showing their evilness, that makes sense in one way. Like Iago, to sanitize his language would diminish it. But if it's our hero or someone else and it's supposed to be played for laughs, that's a lot more understandable to cut that. Then so Gemma works at the Globe a lot with the actors. I don't know if it's in directing or just acting coaching or studying the text, but she says that one of the things that they do at the Globe is address that with a lot of the actors of color who get there and they look up and at the space, and then there's like the Greek zodiacs or Roman zodiacs, and they're like, do I really fit in this? This wasn't written for me. And she said something that they do to feel connected and belong is some of them like pulled out their hair and put it into the stage so that they become part of it. I thought that was cool. I love that ritualistic stuff. And then she was also saying how this LAMDA is a bubble. Like, it's not real, right? It's not how things will be approached. And we can talk about these things, but it might become our responsibility to talk about, to bring it up in other spaces as well, right? To give voice to those who might be tired of bringing things up over and over again, or just start a conversation. You don't necessarily have to change the language or things, but you do need to talk about it. And then a couple students just really opened up and got emotional about their experience and their fears and their offense at how a lot of people have approached sexual assault in plays and media, and just their connections to their culture and heritage and how that affects them. Then then I kind of asked myself, like, what is my standard in language? Because I had always wondered what I would say. I do not swear in my regular life. I don't think I've ever sworn at someone. I've said things just like to myself, but never in an intentional way. And so, as I'm discovering my own standards, I always kind of said, oh, I don't ever want to say the F word. I don't want to say the F word in a play, in a song, in whatever it may be. But I had said that I would say, like, I thought, I was like, if I played a racist character in Ragtime, right, would I say the N word? And previously I said, yeah, I think I would, because I think that's important, because that word in that play, if you take it out, it diminishes the truth of the racism, it diminishes the hatred of those people, it diminishes and it sanitizes, and it lessens the impact and lessens the truth of it. But then I was wondering if, like, why would I say that awful hating word, but not another word that so many people don't even care about, right? So I have things to contemplate. I don't know what the answer is. I know one thing that I don't want to do is take the Lord's name in vain. That's an easy answer. But yeah. And then we just talked about let's having conscious consideration for others. Then we talked about some more reading, that Aberdeen Darabeo, I think is what she said, has a book where it talks about like the erasure of Islamic language in characters within Shakespeare, which is fascinating. And that reading is key for understanding, because we don't always want to have people feel responsible for teaching us all the time, you know. I experienced that when sort of during the George Floyd and Black Lives Matters movement, I started getting really curious and reached out to my, at the time, few Black friends, you know, and said like, oh, what was your experience with this? And they reached out to me. I was like, you know, a lot of people don't want to educate you because you should know. And if you don't know, or even if you, right, that it's important for us to do the work and everything. And so us going out of our way and getting educated, I think is really important. And if at the very least we should just approach everything with curiosity and trying to leave behind our biases and our fears and have those conversations and learn. Yeah, and something that Gemma said as well, I think she was quoting someone else, but I don't remember. I just wrote it was her. Said, our aim is to never remain, but to grow. Our aim is to never remain, but to grow. So I like that. Because we can develop, our morals can change, our understanding can grow, we can become better, you know, and that's the goal. You don't want to just get stuck in your assumptions and stuck in who you are. Yeah. Anyway, this is a heavier little, I don't know what to call this episode, video, but it was really cool to open up and just to be able to have that space and that conversation, because it does feel like, oh, can we address this, or why am I judgmental about things, or or why don't I recognize things, and how can I improve my empathetic nature, and how can I improve my interactions with others? Yeah, especially those who have been marginalized. So then Jess joined us, our voice person, and she talked about not being selfish as actors, and that rhythm is created by a whole cast, and it's kind of a joint effort. And that then we were going to go down line by line by line by line as an entire cast of our scene, so our four, and we were going to go over the meaning and translate basically every single word and every line so that we understood it. So we broke off, and she said, "Don't rush this." So we were in Collett House, so we went back to like the main cafe area. At the end of the cafe, they give away free food also, so gotta hit that place up more often. And we discuss yeah, so we went over every line, and it was great. It's slow, and we have a really big group, so it's gonna take a minute. We decided that we'll get together over Zoom on Sunday, and then over in person Monday, so that we'll be ready for Tuesday where we have rehearsal again. And then then we got back and we discussed what we had learned. Jess is going to work with us on vocalization, focusing a lot on the breath, right? Where to breathe, how to make things natural, don't force it, right? That kind of stuff. And then next week she will be taking the first half of the class, so that she'll be leading out on that. And then we'll need to check Canvas for all of our information. I need to get in the habit of checking Canvas. And then we finished 20 minutes early, and we just got to talk, and it was good. And then 30 minutes later, we had the end of our stage combat history continued, and it was basically just demonstrations. So some of the recently graduated Ds, I think they actually graduated last night, right after they did their demonstration, but they did their fight from fight night, and we had some short sticks, quarter staff, I think is what they call them, but it's like billy clubs, basically, 2 of them, and then 2 machetes, and then the billy club guy also had a knife, and it was cool, and it was really fast paced and exciting. And then the other 2 had 2 foils, like fencing foils, and that one was awesome. And they do these just fun, wild positions. Like an actual move is to have your swords up here, which seems counterproductive because it's like, look how open this is, but that's the point. It's threatening their eyes, because the for a lot of these weapons, you just want to do fatal hits, and that's like the eyes, the armpits, because there's arteries here, the groin, and the neck, right? So those parts are like the vulnerable points. And so yeah, you got up here, and it's inviting them to strike you here, and then you can do something else. It was really cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then we watched a few more just recorded versions that Joe had, and he was in one of them, and it was pretty awesome. But Fight Night was originally planned as a requirement for everyone to do in front of the whole school before qualification, so that they did this huge big thing before they got qualified, because we'll all get qualified in basic stage combat, and that was to feel like, oh, I've done this, the qualification is going to be really easy. It's not required anymore. It just takes a lot of time. And yeah, one of the D's, I don't know if he's a D2 or if he's ending. D2s are second year Ds. Little reminder. So if you're doing the F portion of MFA. Anyway, then he just suggested to film everything, every fight, every scene, every performance. Just film as much as you can, because he's like, I wish I had it. Even if it was a crappy film, I wish I had it. Yeah. And then that was the day. And I came home. Alright, so shorter-ish video. But love you guys. I'll tell you what's up when I keep going. For tomorrow or the next time. Also, all my plugs and my Wi-Fi is not working. So hopefully I can charge things and upload things. I might have to do it at school. But so long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, say adieu, 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 for you and you, bye.